Hello to all my perseverance pioneers out there. So I just wanted to mention with great sorrow before we get into today's actual show, I wanted to extend a moment of silence for the passing of Charlie Kirk, who was assassinated in doing what he loved to do, was to debate ideas in this free country that we all live. He leaves behind two children, a wife, a boy, and a girl. So let's all pause in a moment of silence for Charlie. Today, we will be hearing from a 9/11 first responder who was stationed at the Pentagon on one of the darkest days in United States history. And we're so glad to have him with us. He's a very accomplished gentleman, and we couldn't be glad to have him here on the show with us today. A retired law enforcement captain, and now dedicates his life to his life's work to Catalyst of Change Associates. And we're definitely interested in hearing more about that. He is a servant leader, an anti-bullying advocate, and the author of up to 5 children's books. So that's just phenomenal. I mean, children's books, hey, depending on what the topic's about, maybe even more complex for me. I haven't read the books, and I'm sure they're amazing. We couldn't be more honored to invite him to our famous dialogue den. For all of our perseverance pioneers out there, welcome to the podcast, retired law enforcement captain James. How are you today, James?
Thank you for
Welcome
having me.
to the show.
Doing great. Yourself?
Awesome. We just want to express our deepest appreciation, James, for your service in the law enforcement industry and that whole profession. All of my listeners and subscribers out there certainly unequivocally back the blue.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
So, James, tell us a little bit more about your background. All of our listeners out there, all of our subscribers, we want to know how you got into law enforcement and that whole journey, because I have a lot of law enforcement family members in my family. It is not just something most stumble into, it's a calling. It really is a true calling. So eventually, going into that line of work, you're doing, with Catalyst to Change. Tell us a little bit more about yourself.
So I got into law enforcement. I joined the Arlington County Sheriff's Office in August of 1998 and graduated the academy at the end of that year. Served 25 years with them in all different aspects of the agency, even some odds and ends spots that I was never expecting to be in. Retired as a captain there. And then after that, I had already started teaching at Marymount University a couple years before I left. I'm still doing that now. I teach for the criminal justice section of the social and behavioral sciences school there. And then I have Catalyst of Change, as you've discussed. And I also work with the Boulder Crest Foundation Struggle Well program.
That is a laundry list of accomplishments there. And I'm sure all of your students and where you're teaching, they value greatly from all your insights and experience and just real world knowledge. It's just not the sheets of paper that give people real world knowledge. It's life knowledge, life experience, and going on that journey, as you're well aware, I'm sure. So James, you shared with me, and we're dedicating this entire episode, and this is how we were able to connect. So James, you shared with me you were a first responder at the Pentagon on one of the most darkest days in American history. And that day is September 11th, 2001. That day is forever etched in my memory as well. I can tell you exactly where I was that day. So can you tell us where you were stationed, city and state during the event?
So we're located in Arlington, Virginia, in downtown Arlington. From our courthouse, which is where I was that day in a hearing, you can actually see the Capitol from the windows of the courtroom. You can see the Pentagon from there. We're literally right across the river.
Right across. Well, it's that whole tri-state area, right? You have your Virginia,
right across the Potomac. Yeah.
Right across. And I know it's like, because if you live in any of those tri-states, it's like you're all interconnected. Just like here, you have PA, you have New York, you have New Jersey. So another little interconnected community. So with that, James, so in the perspective of being a law enforcement officer and a first responder that day. Let's walk through some of those first moments together. So when you first received like either the call or the alert, and what went through your mind when you got that? Like our listeners and subscribers like to know from that morning coffee to that morning daily routine. What was it like when you got that first call or alert? Like before you even arrived on the scene on.
So, like I said, we were in court that day. We are waiting for the judge to come down. We had a hearing that was getting ready to start. And one of the attorneys came in and told us that one of the towers had been hit in New York. So we were talking there and we were thinking, medical emergency, something. There's probably a small plane. Nobody had seen where we were. We didn't see any of the information. We didn't know what exactly was going on. A little while later, attorney came back in and said the second tower was hit. At that point, I knew something was going on. I'm sure everybody else there did as well. And it
Correct.
wasn't that much longer before where a call went out or after that saying that the Pentagon was on fire. We looked out the window, you could see the smoke up in the air, and one of our guys came across the radio and said, a plane just flew over my head on 110 Pentagon. That's what happened. And at that
That
point, we
is
got the courtroom cleared out. One of the sergeants threw me a set of cruiser keys and was like, get down there. And probably within 10 minutes after the plane hit, I was over there.
that now. So like, well, I remember even some of the first instances I remember. I was coming back from a class in school, and it was I remember very vividly that the first response was it was a small either a biplane or a private plane had flown into one of the towers. That was the very first reports, and I still remember. It's almost an image that's etched in, and I'll put that on the screen. It's just like it's that image right there. It's just like that's, and especially if you're the TV, you had the box TV or something that's on the arm. That was the image you remember seeing. It was that the zoomed out two towers with the one that had the smoke emerging from it. Like that is etched into my memory forever. So you're at court that day. That was just like, and being in court is just like standard law enforcement. You was just a typical morning, stuff like that, like just moving on. Would you say that just standard procedure?
Yep.
Okay. And so no, you got
Yep.
the call, you got these cruiser keys, throwing the keys. So as you approached the Pentagon, you can even see it. Now, what were the first signs that told you like this was unlike anything you've ever responded to in your career in law enforcement? What were the first signs of that, James? Like how did you know? Like this is our listeners want to hear about this.
Well, the fact you couldn't get on the radio, the radios were going crazy. Traffic was jammed. People were actually getting out of their cars, directing traffic to get out of the way so that we could get through. And when we came around the corner, the picture that you see where the floors of the Pentagon have dropped down and
Yeah.
they're at that angle, that hadn't happened at this point.
Okay.
So the Pentagon, you could see the fire, you could see the giant hole in the side of the wall, and there were people just scurrying from the building and up the hill over because there's a mall directly across the street from there, and people were rushing across to get over to that area. So it was kind of coming around that corner. You just had to stop for a second because it was almost like I'm looking at a movie.
It was in the moment. I bet it was just unbelievable. It's just like when you're looking around, like what's happening. Because anything, I had a incident on a bike. I was hit by a car on a bike when I was a kid. I still remember just that just the slow mo of things like happening. Like it's weird. Some people remember like the trauma from that. And I can't imagine what was going on, like just in an instance like that, like everything going on, like you were mentioning, like people getting out and directing traffic so that first responders can get through on the roads, which are already backed up, knowing everything that's happening in a work day. So you arrive on scene, the parts where the Pentagon, the floors where you weren't collapsing yet or going down. So can you describe some of the very first moments on the ground when you were able to make your way through and get through the traffic? So some of the sights, the sounds, the atmosphere, like when did it really hit you when you arrived on scene and you were able to get through?
It was just first seeing the scene, but then as all the people were coming towards you, we're running in and everybody else is running away. And just the looks on their face and trying to get them out of that area. And on top of that, as we're trying to get in, there was calls going out over an intercom system to get 500 feet away. because the floors were not steady. So you would go in, come back out, go in, come back out. We also had a call come across the radio that there was another plane heading up the Potomac River that was 5 minutes out. And they did the countdown from 5 minutes out, 4 minutes out, 3 minutes out. And I turned to the person that I was working with at that time, who's now the chief of police of Arlington, and was like, "We're gonna die here. This is
This
this
is
is
it.
unbelievable. You couldn't get yeah, you couldn't get on the phone to talk to anybody." And it was, as the day moved forward, it was very surreal because you had no traffic, there's no airplanes in the air, the typical stuff that you would see in that area. But that call going out about the plane was what really was the moment where I was like, this is going to be it for me.
This is it. Yeah, because we didn't know. Again, you're getting the readout. You can't get on the radio. Everything's basically locked. Not like it is now with either the
And it
5G.
went,
Yeah, but
yeah, and
but
they went up to they went up to 1 minute before they announced that it was a friendly that was coming. And it turned out that it was the planes that were coming from Norfolk to intercept Flight 93. But I didn't know that. I mean, nobody knew at the time.
oh, jeez,
There,
Jesus.
yeah, there was a lot of chaos throughout the day where we didn't know what was going on. We also had the media set up, and there was talk that there were bombs going off in D.C., that all these people had died inside the Pentagon. It was just a lot of confusion that we were hearing throughout the day.
So just on top of everything, the scenario, just getting on scene, hearing all this, can't get on the radio, need to get to the site, get to the Pentagon. Then all the chaos of what's happening, what we're hearing, all of that. Like that in itself is just you wonder how you handled it to begin with, like just to process it. I'm sure like in the moment, it's not even a thought of like what's happening right now. It's just like, how can I just do what I need to do? Why I'm here is why I'm here. So I want to ask, like with all that happening, so you arrived on scene now, how did how did your training in law enforcement prepare you for what you were like walking into? How did that really differ from like the training to that type of world changing event, which it was? So what was the expectation? So having that training in your background law enforcement and having it all basically collide on a day like that, like to where anything and everything is happening. So how did some of your training as a law enforcement officer prepare you for just that type of scenario? If there's a way you can ever prepare yourself for that type of scenario.
Well, I think, like you said, just getting in there and doing the job, where oftentimes law enforcement first responders are running to something that everybody's running away from,
Yes.
not putting at the time going in there, even with the plane stuff going on and the calls going across the radio, I was not thinking about my family. I wasn't thinking about any of that stuff. It was, we've got to get in, we've got to help the people that are in there. We have to get these people that are able to out of here and just do the job. I don't know that there wasn't any training that we can really say was towards an incident like that. Nobody would have ever expected that to happen. It was just what gets ingrained in you during the academy, that you go in and you do the job, and then afterwards you let everything fall where it will and try to figure out the aftermath of it after that, which is unfortunately where that story turned for me. But just going into the mode where I've got to get in there and do what I've got to do regardless of what happens. I think it's just how they train you in the academy. Same with the military, to go in and do the job and not focus on the outside noise and stuff.
And that's highly commendable. And all our listeners and myself, James, thank you for your service on that day. And we're in
Appreciate
total
that.
agreement that when you sign up to be in law enforcement or the military or anything that is service to others, you're running towards the action. You're going towards where things are happening. And we commend you for that and for all actions and everything, just like as you said yourself, like you're not thinking about your family. You're not thinking about your life. You're going in there to help the people there, and in a highly uncertain event, and handling it what's just such being in the moment, actually still doing the job, and that's highly commendable, and we thank you for everything you've done on that day, which is still to this date one of the darkest days in American history. It's a day I'll be in my mind forever, as sure as yours as well. And I know you
Yeah, of
mentioned
course.
that was the order. I was going to ask whether it was a single, either an order or a radio call or instruction, or just basically the SOP of that day that set the tone for you and your team and of your fellow officers. But I think it was pretty clear as like when you got that instruction about the other plane that was coming 5 minutes in, that that was it. That literally set the tone for you and your team for that day. But then you mentioned it was a friendlies coming over to intercept any potential other planes. So, like, was that correct? Would you say that was
Yeah, there
basically?
wasn't any. Yeah, there wasn't anybody coming across the radio giving orders to do this, that, or the other. It was a just a complete cluster. Is probably
Pure
the most
instinct.
PG way to put it. Yeah, there was there wasn't like I don't know that anybody knew where their people were specifically. I think everybody responded and everybody was doing their stuff, and then we got caught up at some point with one another. Like we didn't get relieved. I was down there 10 minutes after the plane hit. I didn't get relieved until 2 something in the morning and was back
Jeez.
again at 6 o'clock. So yeah, there wasn't, I don't think a lot of people knew when you came in, when you got relieved, that's when you told them where you were at, what you were doing. And then you did reports the next day and kind of figured out where everybody was. But the dispatchers, God bless them, they kept their calm during the entire thing, and I tell them all the time I think they're guardian angels for us. People forget about them all the time, but the calm that they had and the way that they handled everything, I think kept a lot of us going and at ease during the event.
And I know again, I've watched so many either documentaries or real world stories of like in Manhattan with the Twin Towers that day. And I know they were setting up centers, stations in buildings close by, like literally drop of a hat, taking over a building, setting up computers, doing all that. So when you say like the dispatchers were like guardian angels, that's definitely a well-deserved phrase to put it, because I don't know who can in under such circumstance can be like literally change of what they do and know it's just that much more important on a day like that. Like that is, which it's important every day, but for a day of that significance to still be calm and be there to support the people on the ground as well. I think we've seen some of the best moments of fellow Americans that day, whether you were in Manhattan or near the Pentagon or the passengers that fought for United 93 and were able to take it down. So that definitely is just that testimonial is incredible. So getting more into it, even James, I know it's not the easiest thing to talk about because it was a day. It's just that'll live with you forever for many. So you were there. But what were the biggest, I'd say the biggest challenge, but we might have went through that. It's just that nobody really knew where anyone was at the time. You had shifts and you had to leave and come back and report. So in those first moments, was it just not knowing where anybody was at a given time and just like that chaos, or was it just the coordination? It's just like you mentioned, it's very PG, but it's just like it was completely all over the place. Like, so was that some of the first chaotic moments, or was it maybe more than that? Was it more of the coordination? Or just maybe the safety aspect, or like another aspect we didn't talk.
I think there wasn't really a lot of coordination in the beginning of it. I'm sure later on the commanders got together and did that, but coming in there, everybody just went to where they saw they were needed and did what they needed to do. And it speaks a lot to our officers and our firefighters, where that day there did not, at least in the beginning of it, there was nobody giving you orders. Everybody just did what they were trained to do, what they knew had to be done. You didn't hear anybody complaining about everything. Everybody was going in and giving everything they had to make sure we could help as many people as we could and get as many people out of that building as possible.
And that's the whole testament to being a law enforcement officer. It's just as you mentioned before, and we bring up again, it's just you're not thinking about yourself. That's the last thing on your mind that on a day like that. Also working into it, did you have I know you mentioned again it's mostly the training of the academy and everything you're trained to do as a law enforcement officer. Did you have that clear sense, like literally going right into a situation like that, or was it more of, hey, like when I got here, this is what it was, and now we're literally adapting minute by minute to what is unfolding? Was that would you say the environment was on the near the Pentagon that day?
Well, for me, when I first got there, it was the "Oh my God, what is going on?" moment, like what just happened. But that was immediately gone, and it's jumping right into what we're doing. And then in groups, we just kind of did whatever if we knew people were over in one area that needed help, we did that. We got the crime scene set up. There were several people throughout the day we had to stop from trying to get back into the Pentagon that you
Was
could
there
tell they were.
were they really trying to, were the people that worked there or just were a part of it or assigned at the Pentagon, were people trying to go back in and get others out? And like some of the job was keeping them out of the building?
No, there were military staff that were there getting people out and assisting with
Okay.
that. These were people that were coming back that either had their vehicle there, or I had one young lady that I had to chase all the way down to the building to stop her, and she was like, I left something on my desk, and you could just, when I looked at her, you could just tell that she was completely in shock, like not even thinking about what she was doing. I didn't even have to say anything to her. I just turned her around and we walked back. And then you had people, I had a higher up person in the military that was like, my vehicle's over there. And I'm like, you're not going in a crime scene. It's not happening. And we got into a little bickering thing, but you're not going to win that. And